We're going up to the high places. We're going up to the high places. We're going up to the high places to tear the devil's kingdom down. Sing it again. Let's go up. Going up to the high places. We're going up.
This is Tim and Linda back from the break, and we just got through talking about Psalms 91, our protective chapter. Such a protection that God gives His children. And, what are we being protected from? In today, 2012, what is it, or throughout history, what is it that God's been protecting us from?
The thing is, there is a unsettling that's taken place in our country here today.
Oh, yeah.
There's an unsettling spirit that's settling over the United States, and basically it's over the world also, but we're gonna stick with the United States here this morning. And this unsettling spirit has been with us for a while.
Yes.
But it is becoming more and more and more prevalent.
Yes.
As time goes by. And what I'm getting at, it says in Matthew chapter 24 and verse 6, and it says, there is rumors of war.
Wars and rumors of
wars. And rumors of wars.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, and kingdom against kingdom, and nation against nation, and nation against nation. That's people against people.
Right.
And this unsettling thing that's coming about in the United States, this and the mass media keeps promoting it. I think some Christian people are dodging away from it. But it's here, and we're going to address this here this morning a little bit about wars and rumors of wars.
When you've said that, I've read that verse for a long time.
We think it's about World War I.
Yeah,
and
something
World
away
War
from
II,
the United States.
Something that's over there, and our fighting men and women are going overseas, and it's like most of our wars, except for the Civil War, is overseas.
Yeah.
And it's way over there somewhere, and a lot of people say, well, that hasn't got anything to do with me. Well, it has got lots to do with you, because it sets up a spirit behind a lot of this stuff. It's a
spirit of unrest.
It's a spirit of unrest and a spirit of uneasiness. Mm-hmm. We see it in the stock market.
Yeah.
See the Iranian conflict, and I may get into that, I may not here this morning, but the Iranian conflict, well, when Ahmadinejad saying that he was going to launch some nuclear missiles, that the price of gas went up.
Right.
Well, why would somebody saying something in a foreign country make my gas go up? Mm-hmm. See, we are always taught that there's price and demand, but now it's price and speculation. It has got nothing to do with demand.
Right.
So this unsettling, it starts getting in my back pocket.
Right.
What somebody does somewhere, it actually costs us. Right. Because there's this spirit of greed and unsettling in the stock market and what's going on in our economy today. But we've seen this a lot.
Yes.
And it's within probably the last, I'd say the last 60, 70 years that we have really come about with a lot of this upheaval in the spirit realm in the United States.
Right.
And what I'm getting at is this. Back in the 1930s, there was a farm protest that went to Washington, D.C., something like they did like it, and I think it was in 1979 or something. It was a farm protest back in the 30s.
Yeah.
They went to Washington, D.C., and they camped out on the White House lawn, and General MacArthur, he burns them out. It's like Roosevelt told him, says, don't burn those people out because they're American citizens.
Right.
Well, General MacArthur, he does what he wants to because he's becoming, more and more involved in world economic events. So he sets fire to the dissidents' camps, runs all the farmers off. Nothing is never done. And so then the farmers, they run around and they're aggravated because their government would not listen to them.
Right.
And burned them out.
Right.
And they wasn't there very long, but they didn't have really nowhere to go to. They had lost their farms, they had lost their houses, they had lost their jobs, they had lost everything, and they was asking the federal government to come in with subsidies to help them.
Right.
Well, basically, Roosevelt turned his back on them. And you can find this all in the small pages of history because it's not in the big pages of history. But there's something that starts when people don't feel like they've been treated fairly.
Right. An unrest.
There's an unrest when people are not getting to where they're going because of an unrestful spirit somewhere.
Right.
And so it goes and it goes and it goes, and then we have the Watts riot back in 1965.
Right.
And it was all started over a police state with the black relations, and the young man was pulled over for drunk driving. And then his mother got involved, and I think some family members got involved. And basically, the police department come in and with civil unrest, and they just basically beat them up. And
that was in Los Angeles?
That was in Los Angeles. And through the riots fire, there was through that whole situation, it had got plumb out of hand because the black community had this unsettling spirit because they was oppressed in the situation that they was in.
They too felt like they weren't being listened to.
Again, they were, and then through that situation, there was 34
deaths.
34 people that had died over that, and how much?
1,032 injuries.
1,032 injuries over an unsettling, and it's saying over a drunk driving. But see, it was a different era, 65. Right. See, that was the civil unrest between the black and the white community, and we seen it in Montgomery, Alabama, and Selma.
Right.
The black community trying to get a hold of life.
Right. Well, and then back earlier in the early 60s, it was the hippie movement. It was the people that were, and they pretty well dumped everybody. If they were against the Vietnam War, whether they were hippies or not, they were called hippies, and they felt like they were being forced to do something they didn't want to do.
Well, it was the counterculture of the day in the hippie movements between the 60s and the 70s.
Right.
It was a counterculture because if this wasn't working, I'm going to find something that does work in my life.
Right.
And that's the general.
Again, though, it was that unrest it was bubbling to the surface.
And the same thing with Rodney King. Rodney King was pulled over for drunk driving in a high-speed pursuit.
That was back in the 90s, early 90s.
92. And so through that situation, nothing was said, but the police department that was officially brutally beating this guy, they was in turn found not guilty, and that created a whole another burnout in Los Angeles.
Because Rodney was arrested in March of 91, and then the trial wasn't until 92.
So it was one whole year later, but it's this civil unrest.
Right, and that resulted in 53 deaths and 2,383 injuries.
So why would there be somebody innocent dying over somebody else's deal? And let me get to this because we're quickly running out of time here on the program. And then we have all this stuff going on in Katrina.
Right.
Why should a flood that comes into downtown New Orleans make me want to break into a store to steal a 52-inch plasma TV that the electricity is cut off of my house because my house is underwater. But I go in and I'm stealing TVs, I'm stealing jewelry, I'm stealing clothing, I'm stealing all this stuff. And the civil unrest that took place in New Orleans, why is there a civil unrest that makes me want to go and say, I'm going to break into this man's house because I deserve that? And then because of a flood comes, I deserve this.
Doesn't make sense.
It's not rational thinking. But we as a society, we start reaching out and trying to grab a hold of all this stuff.
Right. And we will be right back.